And in 1979, you had what I would think maybe was one of your most unique athletic experiences. You're in the Pan American Games. You're selected to be the flag bearer for the United States team as they parade onto the track for the opening ceremony, and you are now the first female athlete to ever have the honor of introducing the United States team at the by way of carrying the flag. That has to be one of your most memorable experiences. Could you share some of your feelings and emotions at that time?
It really is, George. For you to bring that up, it just stirs a lot of emotions now, because even as a kid, when I had that dream to go to the Olympics and represent this country and have USA across your chest, that's the best way I can represent my country. I didn't go to war and I wasn't in the military, but to represent my country in the Olympics or any other international competition, and to have your flag raised in your honor as a team and even as an individual athlete, and they have your national anthem played. But in '79, we'd won the championship in '78 at UCLA, and actually I'd been the #1 draft pick in the new Women's Professional Basketball League, and chose not to go because I wanted to stay amateur, and you had to be an amateur at the time, to go to the 1980 Olympics. And so the Pan Am Games came along, and the World Championships, and there were other competitions, but what they do is they gather all the captains of the teams, whether it be track or swimming, gymnastics, and volleyball and so forth, and all the captains meet, and the captains are the ones that vote for who's going to carry the flag. So when I was voted by the other captains, I was really taken aback, and literally wanted to cry, because I couldn't believe what an honor. Mm-hmm. And to this day, to be able to be in Puerto Rico, and there was a controversy with Bobby Knight,
yes.
Who was the men's coach at that time, and so forth. And so with the United States, there was a lot of chippiness with our country at that time, with the media and so forth. But there was no greater honor to carry that flag and hold it high and have represent your nation. I mean, it was pretty remarkable.
Yeah. You mentioned you were drafted by the Women's Professional Basketball League, by the Houston Angels, and that, and you turned down the opportunity because you felt it was more important to you to be a member of the Olympic team. And one has to be struck by the difference in values today and when you came along as a young lady, because it clearly, in my mind, I don't believe that most young athletes today would have made the decision that you did, that it's more important for me to be an Olympic athlete and represent my country than it is to play professional basketball. And listening to you, it doesn't sound like it was that difficult a decision for you to make.
No, it was a different time. It was a different time. You had to be an amateur, and certainly the money wasn't that great in the WBL, but just the fact that there was a league, it was so exciting to have that, finally to be established. So, but I also thought that, it would be there. But today it's so different. With USA Basketball, AAUs, with colleges, everything, WNBA, NBA, everything's kind of entwined now, and it's hard to separate sometimes what is what. But for me, that was a time that, like I said, there's no greater thrill than to represent my country, and I wanted to be a 1980 Olympian, and that was so important to me. But and I had been named the captain of the teams too, so I had a chance to play with Carol Blazejowski and Tara Heiss, and it was just. Pat Summitt was the coach for the Pan Am team, and she and I butted heads a little bit. And but I knew that Sue Gunner was going to be the Olympic coach in 1980, and couldn't wait to play for her again. And but then things changed again, and it just, you never know when something's going to happen, and you have to make choices.
And make choices you did, and I would think that they were ones that you grapple with mentally for quite a while. So now here we are in '79, and you not only make history, but you help write history. You now sign a professional contract with the Indiana Pacers for $50,000, and you now are the first female basketball player ever invited to try out for an NBA team. Tell us a little bit about how this all came about, the offer, and how you progressed through this.
My brother David was playing in the NBA. He was playing for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he'd been the #1 draft pick with the Los Angeles Lakers in '75, and was in the trade that brought Kareem to Los Angeles, and he went to Milwaukee, which was kind of ironic. That's where my family,
Yeah.
my mom and dad are from. So Dave was in the NBA, and obviously we were all following him. And I was playing USA basketball. We had come back from the Soviet Union, playing in the Spartacade games. And we were getting ready to go, I think, up to Lake Tahoe and train for the team that was going to go to the World University Games in Mexico. And I'm home, and I get a call from Sam Nassy, who was the new owner of the Indiana Pacers. And he said, well, how would you like to try out for the Indiana Pacers? And I'm like, oh, who is this? And, I just, the timing was right or whatever, and the way things were going in my life, and I looked at it as an opportunity of a lifetime that most men don't get. What I was doing was nothing different. I played basketball my whole life from the time I was like 3 years old.
And against a male, so it wasn't anything new.
My dad was out there, Dad was one of those guys, he'd step on your foot so you couldn't go anywhere, or he'd grab the shorts, and, he taught you those little things that you needed to kind of get better on the playground. But certainly, I just looked at it as like, well, I've been doing this. And who would have thought 5 years before that, when I was in high school, when I had a chance to play on the boys' team, and I did during the summer league, but then I chose not to. And here was another opportunity. And I wasn't going to let a lot of people talk me out of it. And certainly I was still blown away that Sam Nassy would call me. And it was 1979. Bird and Magic came out. It was the big game against them in the NCAA. It was also the very first year of ESPN. And so, I mean, things were changing. And the fact that they gave me this opportunity, and I talked to my family, I talked to David. David wasn't real sure about this. And I don't blame him, but I also, he didn't say no, but I always felt that I had his support. And I always felt that I had the support of my family. And that was always big to me. And I just said, why not? Why not? Physically, mentally, emotionally, it was the best I was ever prepared to play the game. People say, well, you're only 5'9", you're 140, you can't do, you're going to get pushed around. Charlie Chris was playing at the time, who was 5'8", and obviously a lot heavier than I was. But, I just believed. I mean, I was raised that way, and I thought that I worked hard enough and tried to get better. And my brother Jeff helped train me for about 2.5 weeks and so forth. And I didn't realize the media blitz, though. I mean, when Dave and I were at UCLA, we were exposed to the media. And it was a brother-sister All-American human interest story. And I wasn't good with the media. But then we had to have a press conference, which I'd never had a press conference. Why would I have a press conference? And so the media was very aggressive. And I didn't get it. What was wrong with me trying it out? Just like I was growing up as a kid. What was wrong with me playing sports? What was wrong with me? Somebody's giving me a chance. And I'll never forget, and there was a young man that played with the Atlanta Hawks. And people used to really rip him about how much money he was making. And he was averaging like 5 points and 3 rebounds. And he was making over $1 million. And he was a guy that, people said, how can they pay him this guy? And this is his... the numbers he's doing and so forth. They said, well, obviously the owner gave it to him. Somebody gave him the opportunity. Should he not sign the contract and say, no, I don't want the money? And it wasn't so much about not wanting the money from me. It was about an opportunity to, somebody's giving me a chance to play at this level. The WBL was very upset. She's too old. I was 24. She's not good enough. We have 10 players in our league better than her, and the game has passed her by. So at the time, I didn't realize that it was their way of getting attention for their league. and because I hadn't played in that first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the men, it was very difficult because a no-win situation. If you block my shot, no big deal, it's a girl. If I make my shot, you let some girl beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And but I dealt with that my whole life, went out on the playgrounds, playing with the boys, things that were said to me, about me, and you learn how to deal with it. And so now I'm at a stage where the guys that I'm playing against don't know how to deal with it. And the media wasn't helping at all. But that was just part of the process. And as many people as tried to talk me out of it, Bob Leonard, Slick Leonard was the coach, and he just, very difficult situation for him because the ABA, Indiana Pacers, had just come over and won championships there, and now new owner is bringing in some girl and trying to make a mockery out of the organization, and which I never looked at it that way. And I think Sam didn't look at it that way either, but nobody, Bill Veck made a pretty good living bringing in,
Yes.
the guy from
The midget.
and Charlie Finley up in
Oakland.
Oakland did his thing and so forth. So, why was this so, up against the wall kind of thing? And, I look back to what Billie Jean King did back in '76 with Bobby Riggs, and Bobby Riggs was just as much a promoter of that whole thing. And when Billie Jean beat him, it just empowered not just women in sports, but women all over, and they needed that. Was this the same kind of thing? Probably not, but the fact that somebody was giving me a chance, and I wasn't going to turn it down.
So how did it end? How did the situation conclude with the Indiana Pacers?
Well, I had to tell USA Basketball that I was dropping out, and that was very difficult. And once I did that, and then a few weeks later, then Jimmy Carter ended up boycotting. So the United States never did go to the 1980 Olympics. And I get to Indiana, but I have to go on to New York and do some press things and interviews and so forth, which was very difficult because I just wanted to focus on playing. Now I'm on an airplane and I'm not in a gym and I'm not working out, and so that was hard. And but they had a young woman there, that Sandy Knapp, who was head of their PR, and she was taller than I was. She was about 6'1". So a lot of people thought she was the one that was trying. Nobody recognized me, and but I just. And she was very skeptical about me trying out too, and as a lot of people in the organization were. They just didn't want to be embarrassed. Know that I didn't come from that cloth. It wasn't publicity about me. It's everybody else that was doing the publicity. I was more than happy to just go do the tryout and not have to talk to anybody. But it was a different time, and it was, if it happened today, oh my goodness, YouTube and internet and social media, and tweeting, and it would have been a circus, yeah. And I thought it was a circus back then too. But certainly there was a lot of media there. I was, not ready for how they wanted me to be because of the media. But like I said, I think it was more difficult for the guys. I specifically remember a play, we had a one-on-one drill, and I had to get back on defense, and I got bumped by John Custer, who was trying out for the team, and Q goes, "Annie, are you okay?" And it was a natural reaction. And then I never got hurt out there. I didn't feel I got hurt out there. Might have tweaked an ankle or something, or got, that's just part of the game kind of thing. I remember specifically there's a picture in the paper, a 6'10" kid was trying out, and I can't recall where he was from, but he's coming down for a rebound, and you're such a rebound nut. So, and I was taught, when you come down for a rebound, you're supposed to bring it here. But most guys bring it down low. And so I knew that he would, so because I was smaller, I'd sneak in underneath and just do one of those, and you know what that does, pops the ball loose. So you either get it on a turnover or you stop the fast break, they take it out of bounds, and you can set up your defense. But in the picture, it looks like I'm getting crushed because he's coming down on me, but my hand is right here, and and I didn't get hurt on the play at all, but the next day in the paper, it's something pretty negative about me, and physically can't take it, whatever. And so I tried to stay away from the newspaper and the TVs, and called home and just tried to be positive, have that positive energy, because it wasn't easy going back to the hotel room, we had a couple guys that good rookies at Dudley Bradley from North Carolina and Tony Zeno from ASU, and some kids that were, a lot of people thought I was taking their job, and I just had to block that out of my head and just said, I just got to do what I can do.
So you don't end up staying with the Indiana Pacers. A year later, you sign a $130,000, I think it was 3-year contract with the New Jersey Gyms. And once again, you return to your stellar performances. You end up being the MVP of the league in your first year there. Talk to us a little bit about signing with the New Jersey Gyms and your first year and now, and what is women's professional basketball.
Well, the Pacer tryout certainly didn't end up the way I had hoped it to be, and but it was a personal service contract, and I was with the organization no matter what, and I was doing broadcasting for them, and doing appearances and speaking, and it was great to a certain extent because now I'm with this professional organization. After I went through the 3-day tryout, and certainly it was heartbreaking, but now I had to readjust my thinking on what was my new lifestyle going to be. And I was used to playing. I was used to being an athlete. And so even though the Pacers were great and I was doing other things and it opened up the door for broadcasting, at 24 and after doing all these workouts and so forth, I wanted to play. So they released me from my contract. So I didn't make all the money that I had signed with the Pacers. And the Houston Angels had traded my rights to New Jersey. So signed a contract with New Jersey and play for Howie Landa, who had won a couple of championships.
I know Howie very well.
Yeah. And Howie, again, just a stickler on how to do things, and was helping me how to play the game and so forth. And but the ownership, after being with the NBA and the Indiana Pacers and seeing how things were done, and then you go into the WBL and not giving them enough break to say, okay, this is only their second year in the league, as a league, and salaries were between $5,000 and $15,000, and so I come in with this big contract, and a lot of players are not happy about it, so they want to take me out and say, okay, how good are you really? So games were pretty physical. Our rules were the same as the NBA. We had the NBA three-point line. We had the regular size ball. Or no, we introduced the small ball. The WBL introduced the small ball. And but our fines were the same. If we got a technical, it was the same as an NBA technical. Yet the NBA was making a little bit more money than the WBL players. So there was a little bit of an imbalance there. And lots of time, there were teams that were struggling, teams that were supposed to come in and play, and they had to cancel the game because they couldn't make it. We flew into New Orleans to play Tulane. They didn't have a hotel for us, so we had to walk the streets for a while. And so we did gather money to get money for a couple of hotel rooms, or we'd have to fly out right after a game and couldn't shower, just got on with our sweats and stuff. And but that was the life of the WBL, and you made it work. But it was exciting to be a part of that. But the ownership, for me, hadn't paid me all my money that first year. So I went home back to California. And but during that, when I was at the Pacers, I had been asked to compete in the Women's Superstars. So even though I was playing in the WBL now with the New Jersey Gems, there was a time period, about 4 days, that I was committed to go down to the Bahamas and compete. And I didn't miss any games with the New Jersey Gems, but I had this time period in December to go down and go for the Superstars. So, I thought I was a pretty good athlete, but I was pretty white, being indoors, playing, and just basketball. So when you get down into the sun, and you think you're in good shape, and you've been indoors and in the cold and so forth, I was not the athlete that I was in high school, definitely. And but that's where I met Don. And so then after the Superstars, I came in fourth, went back to New Jersey, finished up the season, went back to California for the off season, and was waiting for them to finish paying me my salary for that first year, which they never did. So I chose to sit out my second year of my contract, which was the third year of the league, and I trained for the superstars. And I would eventually win 3 superstars, which helped me financially. But sitting out that year, we went to arbitration, and the arbitrator chose to say, okay, they owe you for the first year, but because you chose to sit out, you don't have to be paid for that second year. But then by the time the third year of the league started, the league folded. So I didn't get any of that salary. And so another financial learning experience.